clutching tightly to the handle of an old, worn suitcase. Masha looked around in confusion. Strangers hurried past on their business. The concerned faces showed indifference and fatigue. Nearby, a woman in a mottled dress to the heels was loudly broadcasting through a megaphone, offering to take a sightseeing tour of the city of Moscow. There was an endless stream of cars on the roadway. The smell of exhaust fumes enveloped the streets. In this unfamiliar and stunning world of endless people, cars, multi-story buildings, noise, she felt like a chip in the boundless ocean. Where to look for a job? Verka Krenova has an aunt who lives here, and she would have helped me with advice, if not with a night's lodging, and I proudly refused and did not take the address. The girl thought, nervously biting her lips. She didn't know what to do. On TV she saw a girl from the countryside comes to the capital, immediately finds a job. Before she knows it, a businessman falls in love with her, appreciating the provincial honesty and decency of the heroine. The heroine, having given birth to children, lives all her life in joy and harmony with her hubby until her old age. I will go to every store and ask for a job, she decided and sighed. Maybe I'll get lucky. I didn't come here for nothing. The farther away from the station, the less the flow of people was becoming, and soon it completely dried up. There were only rare passers-by. Here appeared a small building upholstered in plastic with a signboard, foodstuffs. Masha stopped in indecision, trying to figure out how to ask for a job. A voice brought her out of her reverie. What are you looking for, daughter? Nearby stood and watched her a short, stubby, elderly man of Caucasian appearance. However, there was no accent in his voice. I came here to look for a job, the girl blurted out. What can you do? What did you do? Evaluating the provincial girl, the man asked. I worked in a store as a salesman, and when it was closed, I went to the cowshed. So you know how to sell? Continued to ask the Caucasian. Masha nodded. You're lucky. I have Verka, bitch, left. Now only Olga is left, and she is exhausted every day from morning till evening work. She might give up. That's why I can take you as a salesgirl. Do you have a place to live? No, the girl whispered confusedly. Yes. What were you hoping for? Aghast the man and spread his hands. Luck. Young and green. Although, the Caucasian spoke confidently. Maybe I'll get lucky with you, too, because trade is down. After a moment's thought, he continued, my name is Ashit. Your salary will be 20,000. So much? Masha exclaimed happily. The Caucasian smiled flattered, in the cowshed. How much did you get? 5,000. Ashit shook his head, not enough. But keep in mind that Moscow is an expensive city. You pay half of it for housing, and food and transportation. So it's not that much. You'll see for yourself. But you'll sell wisely, and you'll get tips, and the trade will go, and I'll give you a bonus. Agreed? Masha, shining eyes, nodded her head several times. Then let's go to the store, said the Caucasian. The room turned out to be small, with several counters and narrow aisles between them. Ashit confidently opened the sliding door at the counter and let Masha through the door at the side. Behind it stood a table, a few chairs, shelves with boxes and some rags. Through the ajar door the master shouted, Olga, as soon as you are free, come in. A few minutes later, a thin girl with a freckled face entered. She froze in anticipation, looking at the guest with interest. I'll tell you what, Ashit spoke majestically. I'm happy. I've found a replacement for you. Wow, the girl splashed her hands and smiled happily. Today you'll show her everything and explain to her what and how. After work, you'll take her with you. Verkin's bunk is free. Tell the landlady that it's her cousin. You'll arrange it. You'll see how she works tomorrow afternoon. If it's all right, go home. We'll order a medical book, and then you'll work every other day. Olga explained everything slowly. If the newcomer nodded, she went on, and if she didn't understand something, she patiently repeated it. She is very strict, thought Masha. However, as soon as the work was over, Olga's officialism was gone. Come on, friend, tell me, Where did you come from? Immediately began to torture her mentor. After listening to her, she said, do not drift, friend. I too a year ago from the darkness of cockroaches escaped. Nothing adapted. We will get through. To Masha's surprise, they got home about an hour by subway, and then took a bus for half an hour. So far to go? It's not in your village. Olga laughed gleefully. Moscow. Get used to it. The landlady turned out to be a gaunt old woman in a laundered polka-dot robe, who immediately eyed her guests suspiciously. It's Vera's cousin. She'll be married to her. Olga gibbered. She doesn't look much like a sister, does she? Frowning her eyebrows incredulously, the old woman mumbled in a squeaky voice. Okay. I was already looking for someone to fill the vacant bed. Then pay for a month in advance and for the last month too. Aunt Glasha, you still haven't paid Vera for the last month. Let her come back and I'll give it to her, said the landlady, her lips pressed together. The old woman frowned, but when she saw the money Masha held out, she quickly put the bills in her pocket and, muttering, went away. Stingy, Olga said in the room. Masha settled in quickly. After all, she had some practice. She counted the money carefully and repeatedly double-checked the proceeds, remembering Olga's words that the owner would deduct the shortfall from her salary. But one time she still looked through it. A man slipped her a bill with the words, "Here's a $5,000 bill," and in her haste she didn't look at it, and when she handed over the proceeds, there was no such bill. The working days flew by quickly. She ate lunch on the go with Dasharak, and only in the evening she had enough to eat. While one girl was on shift, the second girl slept and then cooked dinner. Masha found time to walk around Moscow. She saw Red Square, went to VDNKH, to Arbat. She even went to several museums. On the third month of work was able to send a little money to my mother. She got along with Grandma Glasha too. The old woman was not unkind. Allowed in the evening to watch TV in her room. But in the store Masha felt more confident. Customers were mostly regulars, with a small income. She especially liked the guy with glasses, always in a suit, with a tie, very polite. He smiled or winked. That would be such a groom to find, thought the girl. Once in the subway she was accosted by a man in his 40s, but his look was so forgetful, and his eyes were unpleasant, oily. He looked like he was undressing her. He looked like a rapist from a TV movie. Masha barely got away with it. Once saw in the evening coming out of the restaurant statuesque handsome man with a dazzling woman in a gorgeous shimmering dress. His touching look turned to his companion, gallantly taken under the arm. Noble face awakened in Masha some light feelings. Something extraordinary in this life. She admired the couple until they got into the limousine standing at the sidewalk. When the car drove away, Masha sighed and went home to Olga, who had prepared, according to her, an excellent soup. Now, standing at the entrance to the store, she remembered the couple again. There were no customers. The sun was shining outside and she wanted to bask in its rays. Suddenly, she noticed a little boy nearby. He waved his hands and looked around in confusion. "Where is your mom?" Opened the door and asked Masha. "Not mom, but dad." The boy clarified and added embarrassed, "I lost him." "Oh, my, where do you live?" He shrugged his shoulders and added, "I don't know the address. Somewhere around here. There's a lot of different uncles walking around. Come with me. We'll figure out what to do. Are you hungry?" The kid nodded. Masha sat him on a chair next to the counter, gave him a cheese and a bag of juice. However, the child could not explain where he lived. He was still young, she realized. "Daddy will be looking for you and will definitely come here," she assured the boy. The little boy nodded hopefully. "Oh, Masha, you've already had a child." Asha chuckled, but realizing what the matter was, asked, "Did you report it to the police?" Then waved his hand, "All right, trade. I'll call you myself. What's your last name, boy?" "Trofimov." Half an hour later, a fashionably dressed, trim, broad-shouldered man entered the store. "Dash Daddy!" the boy shouted and threw himself into his arms. The shoppers smiled as they watched the scene. "Thank you," thanked Masha the man, looking at her with confused and slightly naive childish eyes. A week later he came to the store again. "I need to talk to you," the man began resolutely. His voice was warm and velvety. Masha perked up. "My son likes you very much. He talks about you all the time. So I thought, will you go to our house as a nanny? The salary is 60,000 rubles. You obviously do not pay so much here." Masha shrieked to herself, 3 times as much. "You can live with us," the man continued. "You don't need to rent an apartment." "But I've never worked as a nanny," the girl replied, embarrassed. "Cooking and cleaning the apartment, I'm sure you know how. My son likes you. That's the main thing. And that we have already changed 5 nannies. And Alec only talks about you." Masha was confused and silent. "Tomorrow I'll come by. My shift will be the day after tomorrow." "It's a deal," summarized the guest. So she found herself in the elite apartment of a businessman. Andrei separated from his wife and kept his son. Cleaning and cooking was a matter of habit. With Alec, Masha immediately found a common language. And one evening, a year later, Andrew came home with a large bouquet of roses and, kneeling on his knees, offered his hand and heart. "From Happiness," she cried. "Masha, you overslept the milking." Her mother's loud voice made Masha wake up. She hurriedly got dressed and ran out of the house. In the yard near the barn, next to the burned samovar chimney, swarmed neighbors' chickens. The girl shooed them away. A weathercock creaked mournfully on the roof. It was getting light, but the sky was still covered with a gray night veil. On the way she looked at her stretched rows of gray flattened houses with dull dark eye sockets of windows, settled roofs and shriveled gray fences. But today Masha was walking, smiling, not noticing anything around her and dashingly slapping her rubber boots on the mud. Beyond the outskirts stretched a field, dark gray from the constant dampness. In the distance there were a few toy-like houses, and the dome of a church gleamed nearby. Ahead rose a gray, beveled calf house. No sooner had she opened the door than she heard the brigadier's loud voice, "Samsonova, you're late." "I overslept." Masha waved away and loudly blurted out, "Oh, girls, what a dream I had. I'll tell you after milking." Masha had her favorite cows. One of them, Vasilisa, always met her with kind warm eyes and mooed amiably. The girl stroked her and took her hands on the tender, swollen udder with large nipples. Milking this morning was going briskly, and now the women gathered on a slanting bench and listened to the story. "And then my mother woke me up," Masha finished. The women's faces lit up with smiles, and Aunt Nura even cried. "There is happiness in life," squeaked freckled Tatiana. "Even if it's only in dreams." Masha smiled sadly, looking hopefully at the lightless sky. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to our channel to be the first to hear about our next story.